If you ever wonder why conservatives lose, look no further than people like that of Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, those who are on the vanguard of the conservative cultural landscape because, well, they are so far detached from the average person that it's truly unbelievable. Ben Shapiro openly coming out and claiming that people should not retire and they should effectively work until they die, something very easy for someone to say who sits there and works behind a laptop his entire life. But the thing is, if you're a bricklayer, a fireman, a police officer, a janitor, do you actually want to do these things until you die? Do you want to work until you're 80? Because Ben Shapiro is talking about the fact of retirement being utterly ridiculous. It's something for many people to consider how far detached people like that of Ben are from the average working man who actually has to sit there and struggle and work hard and slave away for someone else rather than living in a cozy office job that effectively you control the reins of. We jump into something that is also quite fascinating in relation to, well, conservatives dropping the ball on culture, and Matt Walsh recently coming out claiming that video game journalists are the lowest form of journalist. And while he is absolutely correct, he is not even aware of why, claiming that wokeness is just cropped up in the video game industry and that this is something that people need to be aware of, completely unaware of the fact that Gamergate was realistically over a decade ago, and that is something that was, well, the beginning foothold for the actual standards of progressivism grabbing the reins of power over the video game industry that really started this conversation of SJWs in video games. So, once again, we can see conservatives showing up to the plate late, and when they do so, it's a swing and a miss because they completely misunderstand the struggles of what? The average person. Now, let's go ahead and jump in. We'll be starting off with this clip from the Ben Shapiro show, and man, I just figured it'd be a perfect way to start this off because it is just a glowing, red hot example of how completely detached Benjamin here is from the struggles of the common man. Let's just go ahead and get into it.
And let's be real about this. It's insane that we haven't raised the retirement age in the United States. It's totally crazy. Joe Biden, if that were the case, Joe Biden should not be running for president.
Yes, that is something many people agree on. That Joe Biden, being 81 years old, a bloviating gas bag of an old man, completely lost in his dementia-ridden Alzheimer's state, can't find his way off a stage even if there's only one set of stairs, many people would agree that that man should not be the person who has to stumble his way to the nuclear trigger. Just a thought.
Hey, Joe Biden is 81 years old. The retirement age in the United States at which you start to receive Social Security and you are eligible for Medicare is 65. Joe Biden has technically been eligible for Social Security and Medicare for 16 years.
Okay, so you're only making the point that so many people are agreeing on the fact that someone as old as Joe Biden or Donald Trump simply should not be running for president.
And he wants to continue in office until he is 86, which is 19 years past when he would be eligible for retirement. No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem.
Retirement itself is a stupid idea. Doesn't matter if you're a bricklayer, doesn't matter if you're a construction worker, a day laborer, a maid with a bad back. No, don't you worry. Unless you have an extreme medical condition akin to something like cancer, who knows, then you should be working until the day that you drop. Don't you realize that retirement isn't deserved for you? You need to realize that you should be working every single day of your life because you clearly have as easy of a job as me. Ben Shapiro, the man who has sat here and lived nothing more than a cozy and cushy life throughout the entirety of my upbringing because my father was a famous composer and my mother a famous author. And I grew up playing the violin because I was very wealthy as a child. And with this came the standards that my life was quite cushy. So realizing this, I'm pushing myself into the fruition of thinking that I should be working until the day that I drop. How come you, the construction worker who's sitting there laboring away, slaving away for piss poor pay, why is it that you aren't going to be working until the day that you drop? Do you really want a 75-year-old construction worker, an 80-year-old bricklayer, an 85-year-old fireman, a 90-year-old police officer? Really? It's just utterly ridiculous.
Everybody that I know who is elderly, who has retired, is dead within 5 years. And if you talk to people who are elderly and they lose their purpose in life by losing their job and they stop working, things go to hell in a handbasket real quick. But put all of that aside, just on a fiscal level and on a logical level. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt established 65 as the retirement age, the average life expectancy in the United States was 63 years old. Today, the average life expectancy in the United States is close to 80.
That is the only argument Ben has put forward that has any relevance. We're also far more prosperous in this day and age than we once were. I mean, granted, the dollar being destroyed consistently because of inflation, because of people like those who Ben Shapiro consistently advocates for in government, and many of the different policies that he consistently pushes forward, because it doesn't matter if big government spending is going on, as long as it's pushing the standards of what Ben Shapiro wants in government.
It's totally insane that you believe that you should be able to work from the time that you are essentially 20 to the time that you are 65, which is a 45-year period, pay in, and then you'll receive Social Security benefits sufficient to support you and your family, you and your wife or whatever, for like another 20 years. That's crazy talk. That is not fiscally sustainable. The notion that if you have to raise the retirement age to 67 or 68, that everyone is going to fall apart. My parents are that age. My parents are not retired.
And what did I say Ben's parents do? Well, his mother's an author, his father's a composer. Ah, yes, the physical and demanding labor of being an author and a composer. Again, you're showing how completely removed Ben is from the struggles of the average person who is sitting there not able to achieve a good wage because they're getting paid through low-paying jobs their entire life. But Ben wants this person to sit there and slave away and work their entire life. And again, I'm not someone who's in favor of government programs. I think Social Security is a scam. And the fact is that the people who are paying into it or paid into it prior, let's say, well, your money's gone. It's been depleted and siphoned away to black budget projects and endless wars. What is going on now is that you're siphoning the value of what is being put into it by this generation, the youngest among us who are now paying into these things with their taxes. And that money is then being spent to pay for the livelihood of the elderly. And by the time that we see this all unfold in, let's say, 30 to 40 years, my generation, well, we probably won't even have something akin to Social Security. Or they'll be simply demanding that we work till we die because we'll have no other option. So Ben Shapiro very well may get his way. It's just about the fact of doing so through the death of the currency.
And they shouldn't retire. It would be very bad for them to retire. By the way, it's disrespectful to people who are 67, 68, 69 years old to suggest that they are in the same shape as people who are 65 were in 1940. It's not true at all. Have you met a 65-year-old lately? 65-year-olds are not old in the United States. They're not. 68-year-olds are not old in the United States. Again, Joe Biden thinks he's not old, and that dude is running for president again, and that dude actually is old, and he's 81.
Well, Joe Biden doesn't think he's old, but he is old because he's 81. It's like, dude, it wouldn't matter what Joe Biden thinks. He's not there. He is mentally gone. The fact that you would even bring this to the forefront of what Joe Biden thinks is irrelevant. That man has no thought in his brain. It is nothing more than the teleprompter in front of him, and if he can get through that because of the CIA super stimulants he has been granted by the intel ops, then my goodness, what a blessing he was given for that evening.
I failed to see how a country in which our entire leadership class is 80 plus is telling you that we should have a retirement age of 65. It makes no sense at all.
I failed to see how someone who's lived nothing more than the most cushy of lives imaginable, and someone who hasn't had to do a moment of physical labor in his entire life to sit there and slave away so they could make menial pay, is going to understand the struggles of the average person and why they wouldn't want to do that till the day that they die. It's genuinely pathetic, and this is a perfect example of why conservatives lose. Now let's go ahead and jump on to the next one with Matt Walsh. And here we have the clip from the Matt Walsh show, and before we jump into this, I suppose I'll preface and say, one, this proves Thomas Sowell's quote correct once again, that the oldest thing in human history is people thinking they've discovered something new. Two, I'm not really the biggest fan of the Daily Wire. I mean, like, I like them as an institution. I like seeing them fight the left and the progressives in the cultural battle because I think it's important to have competition in the market, and you can't just have ideological subversion by one entity and with that something that completely overtakes the entirety of society, because then you have authoritarianism. So here's the deal. I like people like Michael Knowles at the Daily Wire. Candace Owens has been impressing me as of late, having Dave Smith on for an interview, which was absolutely fantastic. A link in the description down below. If I remember, it will be there. Please go watch it. It is phenomenal. So here's the thing. I don't really listen to them too much. I like Michael Knowles. I appreciate his suave approach, his understanding of scripture, how he delivers the news, but he's still too authoritarian for my liking. I don't watch Ben Shapiro. I don't watch Matt Walsh. I don't watch Andrew Klavan. It's just not my speed. But the thing that we have to address is, even with it not being my speed, I can still appreciate what they're doing. You can still listen to people that you disagree with, even if you think that they're wrong. I listen to Jimmy Dore all the time. Jimmy Dore is a progressive socialist type. I am a staunch libertarian. These are two fundamentally different political frameworks. But that's fine, because I don't care. Jimmy Dore is telling the truth, and that's all that matters to me, and we can talk about the minutia of where we disagree once we've talked about the truth. And here's what's so important to talk about with, let's say, the truth. The truth is, conservatives are culturally inept, and that's exactly why they lose. And there is no better example of this than people like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh, who are supposed to be the voices at the front lines holding the spears, the vanguard of the conservative movement in the cultural landscape, akin to that of the Daily Wire fighting the fight against Hollywood. And they don't even realize things like Gamergate existed. It's genuinely insane. Let's go ahead, get into this clip, and see what he's got for us.
So what this means is that the video game industry, without a lot of fanfare, has transformed into a tool of both propaganda and surveillance.
I will give him that. Absolutely true. He's not wrong about that. What he's talking about with surveillance is he's saying that the government is now going to be working with some of these institutions that are massive, akin to that of, I don't know, Discord, Xbox, PlayStation, these huge companies, and they're going to be effectively giving them your chat data if you're saying things that are appearing to be extremist content. So realistically, the days of the MW2 lobby are dead. Rest in peace. Everyone have to pay respects. We move on.
It's an effective way to indoctrinate children precisely because it hasn't received much attention, and also because children spend, many of them, hundreds of hours a year, and that might be an undercount, a severe undercount, with this kind of content.
It is a severe undercount. There are kids who play thousands of hours of video games. So let's just go ahead and put that out there. Matt Walsh, once again, out of his depth, not even realizing entirely what he's talking about, and believing that he's stumbling upon something new that no one's ever thought about. Did you know that there's political activism in video games and games journalism? Yes, in fact we did. We knew it a decade ago when Anita Sarkeesian goose-stepped herself into the landscape with feminist frequency.
So it should get a lot of our attention. And now finally that attention is here. And it's yet another reason to keep these games as far away from your children as possible.
And conservatives wonder why they lose. So what we're going to do is we're going to go after the most popular medium of entertainment and make sure that these kids have no capacity to experience it, and we need to strip it from them. And then what we'll do is certainly have these children down the line in our political framework. That's literally the mindset of people like Matt Walsh. I'm not exaggerating. It's genuinely ridiculous. But the thing is, you do not win culture this way. And this is not something someone like Matt Walsh understands, because he is culturally inept.
And if you do that, games journalists, literally the lowest form of journalists on the planet.
I will agree with him there, but he's saying it for a different reason. I think so because they're nothing more than political activists that don't care about journalism nor gaming. Matt Walsh is saying it because he despises gamers and gaming itself as a whole. Therefore, games journalists are nothing more than despicable and the lowest form of journalism in his eyes. Therefore, he looks down upon gamers and anyone who is reporting on it, not even realizing that the reason why so many gamers look down on games journalists is because they are filthy political activists that do not care about the hobby itself.
Will accuse you of harassment. And that's exactly how you'll know that you're doing the right thing.
Yes, that is true. They will accuse you of harassment, and then they will attack you and malign you and act like you're the villain. This is absolutely true. He's not wrong about this. But also, he's not extrapolating anything new from anything new. And here's why this is so funny. Only because Matt Walsh is saying this like this is something new to games journalism. When you go off and you look at, I don't know, the Washington Post, the Washington Examiner, who knows, the New York Times, the Guardian, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, all of these different outlets that operate exactly the same way because it's built off of political activism now rather than actually delivering you the news and conveying information to you. Well, Matt Walsh is acting like this is just some new revelation in the gaming space, but it's not. What we have is another revelation to the people of why conservatives always lose. I'm going to go ahead and call it there. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Stay lovely, stay great. Tell someone you love them. Peace out.